Cyberpunk 2077 was released on the 10th of December 2020. Almost 6 years later, it is still one of the most demanding games available. Today I'll be testing the RTX 3060 Ti, a card released just 8 days before on December 2nd, to see how it holds up at both 1080p and 1440p. The card was launched as a strong option for the budget-conscious customer, launched with an MSRP at $399 US or £369 here in the UK. With the specs on screen now, you can see that even today it could be considered as a decent contender, with the only thing holding it back being the 8 gigs of VRAM. So let's see how it compares in some real-world gameplay tests. On screen now are the full system specifications. I would just like to say that every benchmark throughout this test is on high settings for texture quality, all that stuff, it's on high. So starting with the 1080p benchmark here, this is the built-in game benchmark. And we're seeing here at 1080p with no DLSS or ray tracing, we're getting a very playable 60 to 70 FPS. The frame time between 10 to 20 milliseconds, that's pretty decent. Definitely not choppy, it's acceptable, it's playable. The 1% low is high, about 50, and as you can see the game still looks great here, average FPS. With the minimum FPS still very high at 58. So yeah, 1080p, very playable on this card, still looking great. Yeah, the story is not the same if we just turn on ray tracing. Immediately the FPS drops to 10 with almost 100 millisecond frame time and 1% lows of 6, so it definitely is not playable with ray tracing on even at 1080p. There's no point in me putting the actual gameplay in here because it's the same story, it's even worse in most cases, it's just not playable. If I keep the settings the same at 1080p with ray tracing but I turn on DLSS, that it does help a bit. As you can see, you know, from 10 we jump up to maybe 20 if we're lucky, but again it's still not playable on this card. It's not realistic to play at this level, so unfortunately it's not possible. So here's some gameplay that I got at 1080p with no DLSS and no ray tracing. As you can see, the FPS is a very solid 60 to 70, it's very stable, it's not choppy, the experience here is solid, the game looks great, the gameplay is great, it's probably the perfect level, it is very nice. Okay, moving on to the 1440p native benchmark test. Here again, solid performance while looking great. You know, we're at 50 to 60 FPS. It's not choppy, it's a decent frame time in this benchmarking mode, so it is a solid option. And here's the results: average FPS of 47, minimum FPS of 40, with a max of 61. And the gameplay test here, just zoomed in on the stats so you can see the FPS. It is slightly worse, which is to be expected in a real world gameplay test, but we're above 30 FPS consistently. It's not choppy, so it is definitely playable and it is a good setting to hold. You know, the game looks great, so it is worth it. And then turning on DLSS here, we can get it up to 60 to 70 FPS consistently. This is just the benchmark here, but you know, if you're one of them players that really cares about 60 FPS no matter what, then you can definitely use this setting to help. And there we go, the results brought back an average of 70 FPS, which is pretty good to be honest. And then just for the crack, I decided to do 1440p ray tracing, but with DLSS. And yeah, as you can see, it's not playable. It's at this level, it's really pushing its limits. The card struggles. And then here's the real world gameplay of the 1440p. I have zoomed it in on the stats bar because it is harder to see on these larger resolutions. And as you can see, 1440p, DLSS, very playable, solid 60. I mean, the game looks great, even without ray tracing here. The game looks great, so it's playable. It's a great card for this resolution. If you're gonna play with ray tracing on at this resolution, it's pushing it. The card does struggle, but without ray tracing, it is a solid choice. It can do it. And then native 1440p real world gameplay, definitely still playable, always above 30 FPS, but yeah, without DLSS it does drop the FPS by a lot. If you're one of them people that's like, oh, 30 FPS, it's not enough, then you are probably gonna dislike this level. For most people, it's definitely playable, so it's I'd say it's personal opinion here, but I think it's okay. So considering this card is coming up on 6 years old and you can still get it for relatively cheap on the used market, I think it is a very solid option for this game. It's still very strong, even at 1440p it's playable at native without the use of DLSS. If you want to use ray tracing, it can handle it at 1080p, but you'd have to turn down the settings. At 1440p, that's where the card really starts to struggle with ray tracing. You know, if you wanted these higher resolutions and ray tracing and the high settings at native, you are going to have to buy a better card. But considering this card is aimed at the budget-conscious customer, it's very strong. The game's very playable. It's in a lot of better situations than launch. So in conclusion, the RTX 3060 Ti is still a very solid card for Cyberpunk in 2026 if you're using lower resolutions, and 1440p if you're using smart settings. If you want higher FPS at the higher resolutions, it's definitely pushing its limits, but if you stick to smart settings, it still delivers a pretty decent experience. So if this helps, drop a like, subscribe for more benchmarks, and comment to see what game you want tested next.